No Credits Rolled.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 15 of No Credits Rolled. My name is Sam Whalen. On today's episode, we're going to cover some more gaming layoffs, unfortunately, and also what Xbox has planned for Gamescom, which is, of course, just in a couple of weeks. After that, I've got kind of a gaming grab bag of games I've been wanting to talk about. I was going to cover it on last week's episode, but I got too busy talking about Marvel Rivals. So this week, we're going to cover two games that I have played in the last couple of weeks that I kind of just want to share my thoughts on, and that's what this show is all about. Of course, before we get started, I want to remind everyone to subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts, and go ahead and drop us a follow on TikTok. You can go check out our TikTok for the show at No Credits Rolled. We're also on YouTube at No Credits Rolled, so anything you can do to support the show there, like, comment, subscribe, all the stuff that all those digital content creators always tell you to do. Every little bit really does help. All right, that's all I got, so let's start the show. Of course, we do need to start off with some depressing news, but I just wanted to cover it here because, you know, I do think it is important, and I've talked about this company before. Destiny developer Bungie cuts 220 staff. Quote, some of the most difficult changes we've ever had to make as a studio. That comes from the company's statement. So, yeah, 220 people, that's around 17% of the team over at Bungie was let go. This is a quote from Wesley Yin-Poole over at IGN. He said, quote, "The cuts affect every level of the company, including most of the Sony-owned studios executive and senior leader roles." Bungie boss Pete Parsons said in a post on Bungie.net, quote, "Today is a difficult and painful day." Parsons added, "Departing staff will be offered a, quote, generous exit package. This includes severance, bonus, and health coverage." Bungie promised, which, hey, that's good. That's better than nothing. Parsons blamed the cuts on the rising cost of development, quote, industry shifts, and, quote, enduring economic conditions. Because of this, Parsons insisted Bungie has had to make substantial changes to its cost structure and focus development efforts entirely on live service looter shooter Destiny and the upcoming marathon. So these layoffs come as somewhat of a shock, depending on what side of this you're on. Given the successful release of Destiny 2: The Final Shape, this expansion was reviewed pretty well. I mean, from what I played of it, I enjoyed it. I know a lot of hardcore Destiny people out there really enjoyed it. And the sort of common consensus here was that Bungie really did stick the landing. It was something that people were definitely unsure of, right? Given the previous expansions that were a little bit lukewarm in terms of public reception. But Final Shape went over very well with people, and it was by all means a success. Unfortunately, that was also the final expansion for Destiny, so there was a little bit of trepidation of will there be layoffs, and unfortunately there was. There is some good news, sort of. This is more from Wesley Yin-Poole at IGN. He said, quote, "The 220 layoffs come alongside the integration of an additional 155 roles, or 12% of Bungie's workforce, into parent company Sony Interactive Entertainment over the next few quarters." The Bungie boss, Pete Parsons, said this move saves a great deal of talent that would otherwise have been affected by the reduction in force. That suggests that if Sony hadn't taken on those 155 roles, 375 staff would have lost their jobs, and the actual reduction in Bungie's workforce would be more than 70%. So, you know, I don't know if you can call it a silver lining. I don't know. I mean, they don't work at Bungie anymore, but at least they work somewhere. There was also talks. I didn't really include it in the story because I couldn't really source it well enough. I didn't want to cover it too much. But it looks like there's some sort of incubation team that they're cutting people from Bungie to put in with Sony to incubate a new game. I think Jason Schreier tweeted out that that's around 40 people. So we'll have to see what that is. But again, that's better than just being kicked to the curb and laid off entirely. At least these folks will still have a job in the gaming industry. At least these people weren't let go. This portion of the staff wasn't let go. But this is still a hit to Bungie overall, right? I mean, in doing research for the story, I completely forgot, and it goes to show you how many layoffs the gaming industry has had in just the last year or two, that Bungie did layoffs back in October of last year. They laid off a ton of people, and morale was pretty low then. I saw one quote. I don't have the source for it, but it was a quote in one of the articles I read that said the morale there was described as soul crushing, and that was in October of last year. So maybe they're back there with, post final shape and now more layoffs. I don't really know what the company morale is like, but anytime there's layoffs, I can speak to that as someone who works in a company where there are periodic layoffs that, really do affect the morale of the company. It's never a good thing, and it certainly isn't good for morale. Pete Parsons also mentioned the delay in the final shape and the development of Bungie's upcoming shooter Marathon left the studio spread, quote, too thin, which is true. And this is sort of something that I wanted to cover here. Layoffs always suck, right? Layoffs are always bad. But at least in this instance, it kind of makes sense, right? I mean, they finished the big they finished the big expansion for Destiny. They nailed the landing. They stick the landing. And they're obviously working on Marathon, which is coming up. I don't know if we have a date for that, but I think people are speculating 2025. Look, I don't agree that profits always have to go up, but if layoffs are going to happen in this specific instance, it does kind of make sense. Destiny is kind of be put into a holding pattern for now with just regular maintenance, things like that. They're not going to be doing any more big expansion, so it makes sense to want to reduce that team. And of course, the however the size of the scale of the Marathon team is, they obviously have already allocated those resources as well. So unfortunately, you hate to see the math of it, but it does kind of make sense here. Of course, that's not going to help the people that were laid off. I doubt they care. But like I said before, at least some of these folks were able to be integrated with Sony Interactive and will still retain a job in the games industry. Layoffs still suck, but this could have been a lot worse. Many people inside and outside of Bungie are calling for Pete Parsons to resign and blaming a lack of leadership for Bungie's recent woes. I've mentioned it before on the show, but my name is Bife, who was like the premier Destiny lore YouTuber. He had some pretty scathing things to say about Bungie in a tweet. I don't have it quoted here verbatim, but he basically said, he blamed it on the leadership, which is pretty accurate. Bungie has been criticized for their leadership a lot ever since Sony acquired the studio. I believe that was in 2022, maybe. There have been a lot of questionable leadership decisions, and I think this is another one of them. And again, it always goes back to, why don't these CEOs take pay cuts to reduce the amount of workers that need to be laid off? I don't know. That's because they don't want to. There is a lot of cries out there for Parsons to resign. We'll see if that actually happens. I don't know. It's a possibility, but Bungie's in a weird spot right now, and it's really going to come down to how successful Marathon is, what Destiny's player numbers are like, and what they're going to be doing going forward. When the company isn't hitting its goals and people get laid off as a result, leadership needs to be questioned instead of letting your workers suffer, which is exactly what I just said. Leadership is very rarely questioned, and CEOs very rarely take pay cuts because they don't want to. They want to take all that money for themselves, which unfortunately, I understand that, but it's I'm not in that position, right? I'm not in the CEO position. I don't know what it's like, but I think there has got to be a better way than routinely laying people off. One final note here. This isn't really relevant to the story. I still haven't finished the final shape. I'm on the final boss, but I just couldn't get past it. I'm stuck. I've asked friends, good strats for it and things like that. I was grinding in Crucible and strikes and stuff to try to get gear, but I kind of just fell off. And that's really how I've played Destiny throughout my time with the game. I have peaks and valleys where I hop back on the Destiny train and I'll play for a couple weeks, and then eventually I fall off for, a month or two, and then I come back to it. So I'm sure I'll get back to it eventually. But I'm just playing other stuff right now. There's a lot of other stuff coming out, a lot of stuff I want to check out. And Destiny has kind of been put on the back burner for me. But it's not going anywhere. And one day I do hope to finish up Final Shape and probably cover out here on the show my final thoughts on the Final Shape. But anyway, that is story number one. Of course, depressing news, but I feel a little bit of an obligation to cover these things because it is important in the gaming industry it's important in any industry to acknowledge when there's a lot of layoffs. I think for me, I talk about it in the gaming industry because I see it the most. And, if you compare the numbers to other industries of layoffs, it's pretty small. But I think it's just because I'm so enmeshed with these, like reading about these stories and hearing these people's stories, that it really is something that impacts me and something I want to cover here on the show. Anyway, Story number 2 here is a little bit shorter, but it's lighter. It's not depressing. Xbox announces 3 days of live broadcasts from Gamescom 2024. This is once again from Wesley and Poole at IGN. Really getting our money's worth from him today. He said, quote, in a post on Xbox Wire, Microsoft said it will host a series of daily streams from its Xbox booth at the show, running from Wednesday, August 21st to Friday, August the 23rd. I'm not sure when the show is going to post, so this might be out of date by the time that happens, but hey, who knows? Games set to appear during these streams include Stalker 2, Atomfall, Age of Mythology, Star Wars Outlaws, the upcoming World of Warcraft expansion, The War Within, Towerborn, Avowed, and Era, History Untold. It's like the Civ game. The only one here that I don't know is Towerborn, but all the rest of these games we've already seen a ton of. So I'm really not sure what they're going to show. I don't even, like, if it's going to be new trailers, new gameplay. You know, that's always good to see, especially for, I don't know if we got gameplay of Atomfall. I remember when we saw Atomfall, it reminded me a lot of Atomic Hearts, which is also a lot like BioShock, so all those games kind of blend together for me. But we'll see. It's worth noting that Sony and Nintendo will not be at Gamescom. Nintendo hasn't been there for a while, I don't think. So Xbox could steal the spotlight if they want to, right? I mean, they're there for, what is it, 2 days, 3 days? Yeah, 3 days of live broadcasts. I wrote it right at the top of the headline, and I already forgot. But, you know, there's a couple here that I'm interested in. I've really been interested in Age of Mythology. It's like a remake of the original game. I picked up the original game on Steam, and I haven't really played it a whole lot, but the idea of it is very appealing to me. I sort of like Age of Empires and games like that. I think I'm too dumb for them. I think there's a lot going on that I really can't wrap my head around. However, Age of Mythology works in mythology, which I'm very much into, so I think that could be something that really hooks me. If you add those systems to Age of Empires, which is already a very refined game. And of course, I'm keeping my eye on Star Wars Outlaws, which I think is just around the corner.
Geralt it's almost like Batman and the Joker. Like, Gunther is not the Joker. He's not like crazy, wacky. But he is like unhinged. And Geralt is always
for Star Wars Outlaws. A lot of gaming journalists are getting their
sort
hands
of a
on
similar
that
dynamic
and leaving their reviews.
Gunther is very mysterious
or in video form.
So any scene he shows up in, he steals the show.
And I think my expectations are a lot more metered now for this game.
There's a couple scenes in particular with Gunther.
I didn't really know what to expect going in from the initial trailers and gameplay that they showed, but a lot of these reviewers are saying it's basically a Ubisoft game. And
if you
the
played
finale
a
of the game, you kind of know what that means.
Confrontation with Gunther.
For me, that sort of helped me set
cool.
my what I'm expecting. Right, it helped me set my expectations.
Everything.
And one of the things I checked out Skillet's
really
review,
clever,
which I
and
recommend his preview of it.
Interesting.
He mentioned
that
while it is a Ubisoft
peel
game,
back the curtain on him,
it really nails the Star Wars immersion side of things, which is very appealing to me. He showed some of his footage,
I think is just
and the thing that stuck out to me the most was the sound design. I thought the sound design was really good.
One more reveal at the end, you're like,
and I'm hoping that is consistent throughout the game. It's the combination of the score and the
combination
is
great.
He's
in the main story too, very briefly, but he really
showed
gets the
gameplay
spotlight
on this show
in this expansion.
I'm definitely still looking forward to it.
Other characters that are great. There's like a secondary
antagonist
gameplay of it that is the one that gives you these impossible tasks.
I know they got a lot of flack
he's
for
pretty
that,
great too.
I don't really know what people are expecting.
Gunther really steals the show.
I saw somebody. And I
this expansion really just hit for me at the right time. It's a great
Uncharted,
Witcher story. I can't recommend this series enough.
The
you can jump in with The Witcher
PSP.
3. It's very easy.
Compared it to that,
kind of basically what I did.
Yikes.
But The Witcher 3 does a great job explaining these characters and explaining the world for people that have never played or experienced these stories before.
I'm not exactly
don't
looking
like to play
for
games. I would highly recommend you read the books.
I'm really in it for that Star Wars immersion.
Very, very,
so if the game can deliver that, and sure, maybe the shooting's kind of boring, or you're hiding in tall grass
this
and
world of
doing
these characters
self kills on guys,
whatever.
I can
that's Witcher 3 Hearts of Stone. I'm very much looking forward to when I get back to finishing the second expansion.
And you got that with Jedi Survivor a little bit.
On the show, maybe I won't.
But I think having the the smuggler side
I've been telling everybody I know to check out The Witcher.
Having a ship to fly around in,
except for the Netflix series, because that's pretty bad. But the books or the games,
I don't know. Maybe I'm just. I'm simple enough that I can be lured with these Star Wars.
Yeah, that is all I got for Hearts of Stone. I had another third thing on here, and I'm just going to throw it out there because I will say. Magic the Gathering, everybody. Okay, I started playing Magic the Gathering. From all the previews I've seen, the physical card game. I've started collecting the cards.
Humans look like.
I have yet to figure out the best way to play the game.
I guess
with other
aliens
people
are probably easier to do than humans.
However, and this is what I can talk about on this show. I've been playing,
but yeah, those don't look
computer
great.
game, Magic the Gathering, the Arena, or whatever it's called.
Sort of buff those,
and
before the game
it's a lot of fun,
at the end
right?
of
Magic, a timeless classic game.
Like I said, still looking forward to it. I'm curious if we get anything.
It's definitely got its hooks in me.
You know, anything substantial,
it is very complicated, though.
Meaty. So if, at Gamescom for Star Wars Outlaws and Age of Mythology. But is there anything you're looking forward to from Xbox at Gamescom, or any of these games I mentioned, something that you're looking forward to coming out? I know there's a little bit of buzz around Aura History Untold. That's sort of the Civ-like. We'll have to see. I didn't include it in the review section, but my friends and I are on a Civ 6 binge currently. We are just wasting hours of our lives on Civ, staying up entirely too late on work nights to play it. And if Aura can come out and sort of be another Civ-like, because I think Civ sort of dominates its genre, if Aura can be an alternative to that, I think that'd be pretty cool. And I think people from the Civ team are working on this game, so there's a lot of, obviously good talent there. But yeah, I just wanted to mention Civ real quick because it has been living rent-free in my head for a while now. And, Civ is one of those games where you play it and the time just flies by. And in Civ 6, by the way, there's an actual clock in the game, like a real clock it tells you what the real time is in real life. And when a game puts that in, you're going to be burning some hours. I think the last game that had a real clock in it that I played was Star Wars: The Old Republic Online. And it's like a casino where they don't have any windows or clocks, so you don't know how much time is passing. You look over and it's like 3 hours, and you're like, oh my God, what have I been doing? Anyway, that's not really relevant to what Xbox is doing at Gamescom. But yeah, what are you looking forward to from Xbox? Does anything here jump out to you? Will you be tuning into those 3 days of live broadcast? I'll probably check out trailers or anything else that drops if it's something that catches my eye. But we will have to wait and see. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, it's time to open up my gaming grab bag and see what's inside. You're listening to No Credits Rolled.
Go on, next question, before my beard grows back in.
All right, and we're back on No Credits Rolled. So the first game I want to talk about here is the Concord Open Beta. The running theme with this section of the show is that I am very late to the party with all these reviews, and Concord is no exception. So they had like 2 or 3 open betas. It was on the weekend, and I checked out every one of them because this game sort of captured my attention in a way that I was not expecting. This is the upcoming hero shooter from Firewalk Studios. And, I dunked on this game pretty hard when it was revealed. A lot of people did. And I went into the beta with very, 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 very low expectations. But I was pleasantly surprised. This game really kind of, impressed me way more than I was expecting it to, that's for sure. I had a great time with this game. I found every character in the roster to be fun to play. I mean, obviously some are more effective than others depending on your play style, but I think every hero is worth playing, which I was surprised by. I talked about it in the Marvel Rivals review that some of these characters are just not really viable in their current state, and you're kind of just going to get dunked on if you do play as them. But in Concord, I really felt that all the characters had really cool kits, really cool designs, and it's the same thing I say about all these hero shooter games, is that you want kits that are easy to learn but hard to master. And Concord definitely achieves that. I mean, there's some really unique ones too. Like there's one that's like a fungus person, a mushroom person, and they shoot like little grenades that soft lock, and they can plant spores. There's a lady that just throws knives. She's cool. I mean, she runs around with knives, stuff like that. It's not everybody just has a gun. I think they all look very unique, and they all have very unique kits. And I think that's something that really helps these kind of games and gets people involved because, you want to see that unique cast of characters that sort of lures you in. And something about the feel of this game really clicked with me. It helps that it's obviously very inspired by Destiny multiplayer. I mean, some of the abilities are like literally right from Destiny. The sniper character has the trip mine that you can get in Destiny. There's a lot of the movement abilities are similar. One of the characters has the glide from Destiny, if you're familiar with that. So a lot of these, and there's a character that can do walls. It's kind of like the walls in Destiny, the barriers you can cast. So there is a little bit of similarity there. And I think the overall feel of the game is a lot like Destiny. I kept thinking of Titanfall 2 as I played Concord, and not because it's like on the same quality level of Titanfall 2, because Titanfall 2 is like one of the best games ever made in my opinion. But Titanfall 2 is one of my favorite shooters of all time because of how the game feels. Like, even if I'm losing a match in Titanfall 2, I'm still having a good time because I enjoy playing that game. And that sounds stupid, but like, I don't always enjoy playing Call of Duty, right? I don't love how Call of Duty feels. I don't love just running around in Call of Duty. But in Titanfall and in Concord, I like running around, and I like how the guns feel, and I like the movement, the mobility systems. And that's sort of what I kept coming back to when I kept wanting to play this game, was the feel of it. So there are negatives, obviously. The lore aspect of it, right? They're pushing the lore of this game. Then honestly, I could take it or leave it. They're definitely trying to go for an Overwatch thing with distinct characters and a unique, quirky world. But I'm not really sure it's effective, or definitely not as effective as they wanted to be. They're kind of they're kind of pushing it as like one of the big pillars of why you should play this game is because of these characters. And they've released some cool animated things on Instagram or on social media. I saw them on Instagram. They've had a couple of cutscenes released in these betas because they're trying to do weekly lore cutscenes, weekly lore dumps. I couldn't tell you the story, really, and I've watched all these cutscenes multiple times because they play at the beginning every time you load the game. I don't really know what the story is, so that's probably not a good sign for what they want to do with the lore of this game. The Guardians of the Galaxy comparisons that people made in the initial reveal trailer are still there. It's pretty obvious. It's pretty tough to avoid comparison there, and they're clearly trying to ape off of that style, like that, those kinds of characters. Like, there's a guy who's a lot like Drax. There's a guy who's a lot like Star-Lord. There's kind of like a lady that's a lot like Gamora. So they're definitely going for that, and I will not be convinced otherwise. However, I think this game has a pretty cool aesthetic. The maps themselves that you're playing on, at least the ones that were in the beta, are pretty bland looking, but the ship design, and there's like an intro cutscene before every game. I think that looks pretty cool, and I think there's a lot of potential there if they do more with it, if they make maps that show off those aspects of the design more. It kind of reminded me of Cowboy Bebop a little bit, especially like the main ship that you're in that they show a lot. It reminds me of the ship from Cowboy Bebop, and there's like large titles that come up before each match, and I think the font looks cool there. It's a very small thing, but I talked about it in the Marvel Rivals review too, that the setup here and the attention to detail with these things, I think can go a long way in selling these multiplayer shooters. I will say that in the second, or whatever the final open beta was, there was a text glitch in the like lore cutscene where it was a placeholder name for what it was supposed to say in the text, and it like was never fixed. It kind of blew my mind. It bugged me a lot. Like, it would come up every time I would open the game. I'm like, all right, surely they patched this. They fixed it. They made it say what it was supposed to say. And they never did. It was like until the beta ended, they just left it with the placeholder text. And it's like, I mean, it's big white letters that come up on your screen. You can't avoid it. It's not like it's a small thing I see like in the corner of a map. It is just like half your TV is this error. I don't know. I'm like a stickler when it comes to typos and things like that. So I really noticed it, and it really bothered me. But hopefully, upon full launch, little details like that will be ironed out. And can I even call it a little detail? I mean, really, it was a huge brick of text. Anyway, it's fine. It doesn't matter. What else I got here? Weekly lore cutscenes. I really don't know how feasible that's going to be, but hey, they're welcome to try. There's a hero roster system in the game that I would describe as just unnecessarily complicated. You initially, like, I didn't even know this hero roster system was in the game until I played for 4 or 5 hours. So you have your initial hero lineup, like you would in any of these hero shooters, where you pick your character and you're good to go. But you can customize your hero roster. So you can go in and you can unlock variants of the same character, and I think there's up to 3 variants of each character. So, for example, I had a guy named Maddox, I think. Lennox. His name was Lennox, sorry. That's how memorable these characters are. So the default Lennox he has like an orange vest, and his passive is that when he rolls, he does a dodge roll and he reloads like McCree in Overwatch. But I got a variant of him that has a pink vest, and that version's passive is they just have more ammo. However, to equip that variant, you have to go into your hero roster. It's like a deck. I think they might call it a deck. I don't remember. And you have to swap in the variant. So you can have up to 3 variants of each character on your roster. I think your roster has up to 12 heroes. So hypothetically, you could have 3 variants of 4 characters, and that would be your whole roster. There's also like crew bonuses where if you select certain heroes and other players in your matches have certain heroes, there's like passive buffs that synergize. It's like, I don't know. I think they could like completely cut it from the game and nobody would notice. It seems way too overly complicated for what they're trying to do here. There's also backups in your roster that you don't get to pick, but the game auto-generates based off of what you did pick so that you can have like a healer and a tank if you didn't pick one, but you'll have them anyway. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't like that. I wish like instead of doing that, they just had you, when you pick the character, you could just select the variant from there, like a costume change in Smash Brothers or something. I don't know. I think they should probably just scrap that whole system. I don't really see like I doubt people are going to get in the nitty gritty of it and like metagame it. I really just don't think that's going to happen. So I think they could just completely remove it and it would just take out so much unnecessary confusion from the game. There is the elephant in the room that we need to address. The game is $40 at launch, and I believe it launches in a couple weeks at the time of recording. It launches sometime in August. I can't believe this game is $40 at launch. Everybody said this when the trailer came out, and it's still true, that this game should not be $40. This game should be free to play. I would argue this game needs to be free to play, or at least come included with PS Plus the month it drops to like have any hope of succeeding. You know, like I loved my time with this game. I played a ton of it. I did not want to put it down, but even I'm not going to drop $40 on it. I just think like we're in a post-Fortnite world, which is like a very cringe thing to say, but it's true if you think about it, right? The Fortnites, the Apexes, the Warzones, these free-to-play games dominate the landscape. I just don't think in 2024, the year of our Lord 2024, I do not think you're going to be able to get people to pay $40 for a hero shooter. Like, I just don't think it's going to happen. I think, like, if anything, they could do it free to play and have a battle pass, but they actually they were flexing, saying that if you drop the 40 on this game, the battle pass will always be free. They said something like, you own Concord, Concord doesn't own you, which that's a weird way to phrase that. But I just don't think this game already has a high enough hill to climb, right? A mountain to climb to get in people's heads and get them to want to play it. And I think if you made it free, at least people would try it. But making it $40, I don't think, like, no one's going to buy this. And again, that's coming from me who loved it, right? Like, I know it has flaws, but I really enjoyed this game, and I would love to play it when it came out. But I can't justify $40 on it, especially because none of my friends are going to be able to buy it. Like, there's a team, I think it's teams of 5. So if you have 4 other friends, you need to all spend collectively, what is that, $200 to play this game together? Like, that's not going to happen. No one's going to do that. I don't know. And there really was a lot of speculation that they were going to make this free to play after this beta, but they are holding firm on that $40 price tag. So, hey man, you're welcome to try, but I really don't think it's going to go well. And it sucks for the devs because if that does kill the game, then they're kind of out of luck. We'll see. I mean, maybe they'll switch it after launch, right? Maybe it's too close to launch now for them to fix it. That's another thing. They're doing these betas like a month before the game comes out. I don't really know what they're going to be able to fix in that time, unless it's just purely like a server stress test thing. It seems way too early or way too close to the launch for these betas to actually be effective in terms of, like testing and getting rid of bugs and stuff. The game felt fine. Like there wasn't any, I didn't really notice any bugs. So it's one of the, again, I talked about this in the Rivals review. It's one of those betas where the game could have just came out and been fine. But like, I keep going back to this price tag thing. It blows my mind that this game is going to be paid at launch. But maybe they'll recant on that post launch. We'll have to wait and see. What else did I have for this? Yeah, I pretty much covered everything. The last thing I just wanted to hit on was that price tag thing. The hero shooter genre is a crowded one. I still love these games, but I think the only way Concord's going to have any potential to find a spot in the crowd is to make it free to play. So we'll have to wait and see, but I hope it goes free to play so I can play more of it, or at least goes free to play eventually. and I hope the servers don't get turned off, especially. But yeah, that is my thoughts on Concord. If any of you checked it out, I know it was a pretty limited beta, but I would like to know your thoughts as well, because like I said, I know a lot of people, myself included, kind of clowned on it when it was revealed, but the game surprised me. So anyway, review number 2 here. We have The Witcher 3 Hearts of Stone. That's DLC for the first expansion for the absolutely incredible 2015 RPG from CD Projekt Red. I cannot speak highly enough about the Witcher franchise or the Witcher series, whether it's the books, the games, parts of the first season of the Netflix show. The Netflix show is real bad, but parts of the first season is good. Henry Cavill was good as Geralt. I thought he did a good job. Everything else was pretty bad. But I know I'm, again, late to the party here with this. This is one of those episodes where I'm reviewing things that if you were given like 100 guesses, you probably wouldn't have been able to guess. But it's one of the reasons I love doing this show. I can dig up a game that I randomly decided to start playing, and I can talk about it here. And that's really a big reason why I started this show, is because I got to get it out of my system. So that's what we're here to do. And a brief recap of my experience with the Witcher franchise. I absolutely love it. I played a little bit of Witcher 2, but I was younger at the time, so I was used to just COD and stuff like that, so I didn't really know how to play really complicated RPGs. But The Witcher 3 was a lot more accessible, and I fell head over heels for that game. I absolutely love The Witcher 3. Since I've done this DLC playthrough, I've actually started another playthrough of The Witcher 3, and I just can't get enough of it. Geralt as a character, all the side characters, the world, there's something about it that is just so entertaining and interesting to me, and so many scenarios that are presented in this world that I just find so fascinating, and such a inversion of typical fantasy tropes, but not in like an edgy way, right? Not in like a we're doing this inversion just to do it, like if The Boys was a fantasy series. I think it really presents a lot of interesting questions in the fantasy genre, and Geralt, especially as a character, I think is just very interesting, and he's a fantastic protagonist. He's good. He's a good person, but he's in a world where he's often presented with situations where he has to make the difficult choice, and it's interesting every single time. I already talked about how good Henry Cavill was as Geralt. I've also started listening to the audiobooks, which I highly, highly, highly recommend, especially if you can get the same narrator that I have. I don't remember his name, but it's whatever version's on Spotify, which you can also subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, just saying, while you're there. The audiobooks are great, and it's crazy to me, having played Witcher 3, because the books take place before the games. So having played Witcher 3, I'm now getting the backstory of all these characters that I only ever knew from the game. And it's crazy to me how consistent the translation from the books to the games are in terms of the character of Geralt, in terms of how this world works. It's incredible, and I really don't know what else to compare it to. I'm sure there's obvious ones that I'm missing. But yeah, I kind of just wanted to gush about The Witcher for a little bit. But back to the expansion. This expansion is usually like forgotten, because the second expansion, Blood and Wine, was a huge hit, and everybody loved that one. I'm playing through that now as well, and it is very good and deserves all the praise it got. But because of that, Hearts of Stone kind of got cast aside and sort of forgotten about. But this is like quintessential Witcher storytelling. It kicks off with a twisted version of a fairy tale. You fight a toad in the sewers that turns out to be a prince. That's not really a spoiler, because it's like the first thing you do in the expansion. So you get your inversion of fairy tales there, which The Witcher is kind of known for. And then it introduces this larger plot. Geralt obviously gets caught up in the machinations of somebody else. He has to complete these impossible tasks, and there's like 3 of them. And working through each one is just so much fun. And you're presented with a very simple but impossible task, and then you go about it, and you have to see how Geralt goes about completing this quest. And each one is unique. Each one you go about it in a different way, and it just feels very Witcher of Geralt being in these ridiculous situations, but using his own intelligence and using his deduction skills and everything else to complete these tasks, even if they are impossible. I just love Geralt, if you can't tell. He's one of like my favorite fictional characters ever, and that's only my not admiration, that's a bit much. My love of him as a character is only growing as I go through these books, because they obviously nailed his character from the very beginning. let me look up the author's name. I think it's like Andrzej Sapkowski or something like that. It's a name that I'm going to have a hard time pronouncing. But from the very beginning, they nail Geralt and they nail every other character in this series, and that's translated to the books. Yes, Andrzej Sapkowski. It's hard to say. It is Polish, so I apologize. But yeah, he's the original author of the books. The books are translated from Polish into English, but I haven't really noticed any translation issues anyway. But yeah, Geralt is the best. He is funny. He is smart. He's just a great protagonist to have in your story. But anyway, also in this expansion, they kind of just wanted to show how cool Geralt is. There's a lot of cutscenes where he just does cool stuff. The one in particular that comes to mind, he wakes up on a beach and he's being like dragged and he's prisoner. His hands are bound, but he manages to free himself, and it's like a 1v6 with guys with swords. And Geralt, his hands are tied, but he still manages to take them all out. It's like almost to the point of parody of like how cool he is and like how he manages to do this. But there's cutscenes like this in the second expansion too, and I feel like they really just wanted to show in these expansions just like how cool this guy is and how many different skills he has and how he can utilize them. There's also Gaunter O'Dim, who is the best. He's the sort of primary antagonist of this expansion. You don't really know what his deal is until closer to the end of the game. I mean, if you're paying attention, you can kind of guess what his deal is. I don't want to spoil anything if you do decide to go check it out. But he is such a great antagonist, especially when your protagonist is Geralt. Geralt is, it's almost like Batman and the Joker. Like Gaunter is not the Joker. He's not like crazy, wacky, but he is like unhinged. And Geralt is always so serious and logical. It's sort of a similar dynamic. Gaunter is very mysterious. So any scene he shows up in, he steals the show. I mean, there's a couple in particular. Again, I don't want to spoil it. There's a couple scenes in particular with Gaunter where he does things and he does bad things to people that you're like, wow, like what is this guy's deal? And the finale of the expansion, your final confrontation with Gaunter, is very, very cool. And it sort of wraps up everything that you've come to know about him in this expansion in a really clever and interesting way, because you finally kind of peel back the curtain on him just a little bit. But they also leave even more mystery, which I think is just a mark of great storytelling. If you think you've got everything figured out, and then they do one more reveal at the end, you're like, wait, what? And it kind of makes you question everything once again. Gaunter O'Dim is great. He's in the main story too, very briefly, but he really gets the spotlight in this expansion. There's also other characters that are great. There's like a secondary antagonist who is the one that gives you these impossible tasks. He's pretty great too, but Gaunter really steals the show. This expansion really just hit for me at the right time. It's a great Witcher story. I can't recommend this series enough. You can jump in with The Witcher 3. It's very easy. It's kind of basically what I did. But The Witcher 3 does a great job explaining these characters and explaining the world for people that have never played or experienced these stories before. If you don't like to play games, I would highly recommend you read the books. The books are very, very, very good, and the games are very, very good as well. Just this world and these characters are really just something special. So yeah, that's Witcher 3 Hearts of Stone. I'm very much looking forward to when I get back to finishing the second expansion. Maybe I'll talk about it on the show. Maybe I won't. I'm not sure, but I've been telling everybody I know to check out The Witcher in some way, except for the Netflix series, because that's pretty bad. But the books or the games, check them out. Like I said, you can start with Witcher 3. But yeah, that is all I got for Hearts of Stone. I had another third thing on here, and I'm just going to throw it out there because I have been playing it. Magic the Gathering, everybody, okay? I started playing Magic the Gathering. Not the physical card game. I've started collecting the cards. I have yet to figure out the best way to play the game with other people. However, and this is why I can talk about it on this show, I've been playing the computer game, Magic the Gathering, the Arena, or whatever it's called. And it's a lot of fun, right? Magic, a timeless classic game. And I've definitely got its hooks in me. It is very complicated though. So if the whole reason I'm talking about this, because if anybody out there is listening and you are a Magic the Gathering fan, please comment or email us at nocreditsrolled@gmail.com, because I would like to know the best way to get started in this game. I would like to know like a good way to start this game for a beginner. I've checked out the Professor on YouTube. He's great. I've been watching a lot of Commander gameplay, people playing Commander, and I really like the idea of Magic the Gathering, and the cards that I have collected and sleeved. I find that process very cathartic, right? Of taking your cards and sleeving them and organizing them. I've never really been into trading card games. Like I played Pokemon. Well, I didn't even play Pokemon when I was a kid. I just had the cards because I thought they looked cool and I was watching the show. But yes, I've been playing the computer game and I have it on my phone as well, and it's a lot of fun. So now I have physical cards and I don't know what to do with them because I haven't conned my friends into playing with me yet. I think I will, since I bought them all decks that we can play that are pre-made. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about it on the show real quick, because if I have any listeners out there that are into Magic the Gathering, I would love to hear from you just to get some beginner tips and what the best way to get started is. Of course, you can always email nocreditsrolled@gmail.com with those tips, or comment anywhere this video is posted. It'll go up on YouTube. It'll go up on Spotify and all that stuff. You can comment there. Actually, I don't know if you can comment on Spotify. You know what I mean, though. Any way you can communicate with the show, let me know if you are a Magic the Gathering player. But anyway, that is going to wrap up episode 15 of No Credits Rolled. I want to thank you all so much for listening. Like I said, you can always email questions or comments or Magic the Gathering tips to nocreditsrolled@gmail.com. We also still have a phone number for now. You can call in and leave us a voicemail at 856-209-0713. We might just play it on the air. You feel free to call in and tell me about Magic the Gathering, too. I'd love to hear about it. You can also make sure you subscribe to No Credits Rolled on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcast. I was trying to remember. I was looking at the stats, and there's one podcast provider that I had never heard of, but it was like a third of our listeners. Something. Pocket Cast? I think that might be it. So if you're listening on Pocket Cast as well, thank you very much. We appreciate it. If you're feeling generous, we also have a Patreon. Of course, you can subscribe over there for just $3 a month, and you can tell me what I should be playing, what I should be talking about on this show. But that's all I got. I'll see you all next time on No Credits Rolled.